Judging by how cohesively and thoroughly the Republicans launched a counterattack on the press and the Democrats, it seems that the counterattack was carefully prepared and was just waiting for the other side to start attacking. And it waited. Right after the shutdown fiasco, trying to distract the country from their failure, the Democratic Party leaked information through Politico. It's a website that's well known. A lot of people go there for news. 3 of Epstein's emails where Trump's name was mentioned in one way or another. There was nothing reprehensible or criminal, but otherwise they would have just used it. During those 4 years when they were in charge and had all this in their hands, well, the Biden 4 years, yes. But the very fact that Epstein mentions Trump was kind of used by the Democrats for a new attempt to link Epstein's name to Trump. Well, that is to link Trump to pedophilia, let's put it that way. And then thunderstruck. Trump didn't just keep files in reserve, so to speak, as a backup, but it seems he wanted to use them. At the moment when the impact would be the greatest and cause the biggest resonance, and the impact had a huge resonance, I would say the size of a tsunami.
Ooh. We have the very first resignation of a Democrat because of the latest sensational Epstein files, which ironically started when the Democrats tried to distract the country from their humiliating defeat in the Schumer shutdown. Do you remember how the Democrats? The Oversight Committee released 3 letters from Jeffrey Epstein's estate. All 3 were deliberately selected to try to drag Trump into Epstein's dirty circle. Of course, the emails didn't reveal any new information. They didn't even remotely indicate that Trump was involved in any nefarious activity. But this gave Trump and the Republicans an opportunity to launch a full-scale nuclear retaliation. The House Oversight Committee released tens of thousands of Epstein's emails and messages, like real bombs dropped on the Democratic Party. And these emails and messages revealed that the Democrats, and especially Barack Obama's inner circle, had direct and regular contact with Epstein, and now these connections have officially taken one of them out of commission. Larry Summers, former Treasury Secretary under the Obama administration and ex-president of Harvard University, is withdrawing from all public appearances, after it turned out that he was, in fact, a big admirer of Epstein. The reports not only showed that Summers regularly communicated with Epstein, but the emails also revealed that Summers, I tell you, actually asked Epstein for dating advice. Yes, it's in the emails. You can't make this stuff up. High-ranking Democrats from Barack Obama's inner circle were asking Epstein, one of the worst pedophiles in our country's history, for damn dating advice.
The Secretary of the Treasury in Obama's administration, his close advisor, a member of his so-called inner circle, was asking a pimp involved in trafficking underage prostitutes for advice on how to do it better. Well, according to the statement of this, let's say, Secretary of the Treasury, I don't even know how to say it. Meet, seduce, persuade, entice. So, in addition to everything that Epstein himself did so well, the young girl, yes. At that point, Epstein was already recognized as a pimp and put on trial. That's essentially what happened. Well, practically with the help of his clients, who really didn't want him to start talking about anything. Overall, he served little time. I don't remember now how long he served and when he got out, but he came out with the label of a pimp. Not just a pimp, but a real pimp, so to speak. Girls aged 14, 15, 16 years old. Of course, you could say that Larry didn't know something, but this was such a high-profile case and it was already connected to the government that Larry Summers, well, it's just impossible to imagine that he didn't know. He knew.
This is just the beginning of the resignations. The New York Times reports that Summers has left the advisory board of Yale's budget lab. He has reportedly resigned from his role at the Center for American Progress, a very left-wing think tank. A spokesperson for the organization confirmed that Summers has left. And it's only a matter of time before he leaves Harvard University, where he is still listed as a faculty member. But I just don't understand how a fan of Jeffrey Epstein can continue to be around 18-year-old girls. The consequences of the Epstein case are only now starting to surface. We now learn that Epstein was in direct contact with the Democratic delegate from the United States Virgin Islands during the hearing where former President Trump's lawyer Michael Cohen was being questioned.
This is also a very interesting point. The Democrats communicated with Epstein during the interrogation of former Trump lawyer Michael Cohen.
Stacey Plaskett, a non-voting delegate from the Virgin Islands, apparently exchanged messages with Epstein during a congressional hearing in February 2019, where Cohen was being questioned in an attempt to find compromising material on Norway. And they were exchanging messages. And it seems that Epstein was actually feeding questions to this delegate for them to ask Cohen.
Epstein was asking questions. Basically, he was the one asking questions at the congressional hearings. Just think about that. This guy was so embedded in the Democratic Party that he was feeding them questions for the witness against Trump in real time during official congressional hearings. But actually, it's even worse.
Well,
There you go. You couldn't make this up. How close was Epstein to the Democrats that they helped him and he helped them in the fight against Trump? That doesn't really fit the image of a close friend of Trump.
now we find out that this delegate from the Democratic Party from the Virgin Islands accepted $30,000 from Epstein for the Democratic Party's election campaign committee after he had already been convicted of sex crimes. She also received the maximum campaign donations directly from Epstein in 2016 and 2018. But again, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Now we will learn about some of the antics of these major Democrat donors, and we will learn about Democrat judges and what they are doing behind the scenes to prevent the release of grand jury proceedings related to Epstein. What?
Steve says that the 3 judges who have banned the publication of some interrogation materials and things like that are doing the wrong thing. That's right.
It turned out that co-founder Leng Din is a billionaire and a major donor to the Democrats. Reid Hoffman visited Jeffrey Epstein's private Caribbean island in 2014, and reportedly he planned to spend the night at the Manhattan townhouse. Epstein in December of the same year, where he was invited for breakfast with Bill Gates himself. Isn't it interesting how Gates has recently become friends with Trump? Most importantly, Hoffman personally invited Epstein to a dinner in Silicon Valley in 2015 with a number of tech billionaires. Keep in mind, this was 7 years after Epstein's conviction in 2008. It is reported that Hoffman also facilitated the transfer of $525,000 from Epstein to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology Media Lab from 2013 to 2017. And so, in light of these revelations, President Trump officially tasked Attorney General Pam Bondi with investigating Hoffman's ties to Epstein as well as those of other prominent Democratic donors. And of course, we haven't even mentioned the fact that Bill Clinton flew on Epstein's private jet. Astonishing 26 damn times.
So after Epstein was tried, found to be a pimp of minors, and released, the powerful people of this world would gather at his breakfasts, fly out and spend nights on his island, introduce him to their friends. I hope they weren't introducing him to their younger daughters. They gave him money and consulted with him. How can you hurt Trump the most?
Before the flight logs, before the onboard journals, although Clinton denies ever visiting Epstein's island. That's right, I smoked but didn't inhale. Witness testimonies and emails raise serious questions about this. An Epstein victim claimed she saw Clinton on the island with 2 young women. Although, to be fair, I should note that Ghislaine Maxwell denied this in recent testimony. Again, we'll see when new evidence comes to light. But more importantly, here's what the Democrats don't want you to know. What's really happening behind the scenes, behind all their hype about releasing the Epstein files. 3 federal judges, all appointed by Democrats, blocked previous attempts to release the Epstein grand jury materials in 2025. Get this straight. The grand jury testimony is being blocked from public view by 3 Democrat judges. One was appointed by Obama and the other 2 by Clinton. Yeah, by freaking Bill Clinton. These are the judges who are blocking the release of these documents. That's why the Democrats are speaking so harshly. They're making a lot of noise about releasing the Epstein files while fully knowing behind the scenes that these judges are preventing the release.
Once again, the Democrats are demanding transparency in the release of the Epstein dossier. At the same time, they're putting pressure on 3 judges to make sure under no circumstances that they allow the publication of the materials that are being kept in their court, because supposedly it would harm the victims. But the victims, by the way, are actually demanding disclosure.
That's why when Republican Representative Tim Burchett,
Remember, I showed clips from Tom Briozette's interview where he talked about how the lack of transparency is the work of the Democratic Party.
the party that had been demanding transparency for months suddenly slowed down when their own members came under close scrutiny. But that doesn't matter. Roughly 100 House Republicans are expected to back the Epstein Files Transparency Act, which requires the Department of Justice to release all files within 30 days, with only the victims' names redacted. Even Speaker Johnson has indicated that he is ready to vote for it if the Senate makes changes to protect the victims. But ultimately, we need to remember that overall, this isn't just about one scandal. This is about a 2-tier justice system where the rich and powerful avoid consequences while ordinary Americans face punishment. The survivors of Epstein's crime wrote to Congress stating that his crime. This is exactly what the double standards of justice show. Justice where rich and powerful men and women avoid consequences. Rules for you, not for me, and that's ultimately what today's vote is about. The vote is later today. If it passes the House, it still needs Senate approval and President Trump's signature, which he's already promised. And this could be a moment of transparency that America has not only been waiting for, but frankly demanding since the rather suspicious death of Epstein in 2019. And I think, as others like Michael Knowles have argued, I think this will be a moment when we see, so to speak, Trump's battered coalition regain its energy and come together again. Because in the end, what unites this coalition is populism. And populism is essentially the people against the corrupt elite, the corrupt political class. And Epstein is their symbol. He is the face of this corruption. And if these Epstein files are made public, I think that will be the glue, so to speak, the sinews that will reunite the Trump coalition. So let's hope that the Republicans follow Trump's example and do the right thing. Light is the best disinfectant. Release the files, arrest the guilty, let justice prevail, and let's overthrow this corrupt elite.
The Democrats attacked, hoping that the Epstein files would never be released.
And now we see one very clear reason why you want to create a political FBI, Epstein files. Do you want the FBI to be blindly loyal to Trump and to you as his enforcer? So you can continue to cover up a vast international human trafficking network with more than 1,000 victims betraying all the survivors of that sexual abuse.
This member of the United States Congress, Raskin, is rambling on television accusing him and the Republicans of betraying all the victims. Epstein, who, as it turns out, as we've learned from these new emails, was actually helping and serving the Democrats. Before
you took this position, you called for the full release of the Epstein files, telling podcaster Benny Johnson that the only reason the list wasn't published by the Department of Justice and the FBI is, quote, because of who is on that list. After your confirmation, you promised, quote, there will be no cover-ups, no missing documents, not a single stone left unturned by your or the current bureau. Anyone who obstructs this will be prosecuted quickly. This spring, you ordered hundreds of agents to review all of Epstein's files, but not to look for any more evidence about the financial network or the human trafficking network. Did you pull these agents away from their usual duties of fighting terrorism or drug trafficking so they could work around the clock? Some of them slept at their desks, feverishly searching to make sure that Donald Trump's name and image were flagged and removed wherever they appeared.
I wonder how much of what Raskin presents as fact in his speech is actually just his own invention. Like, you put employees on a polygraph to check if they're for Trump or not. In reality, they were looking for those who were leaking information to the press. It's quite possible that's how they found out who was cooperating with the Democrats. Or take this, for example. He made hundreds of employees search to see if Trump's name was there. Well, in the pages, emails, and so on that were left from Epstein. Actually, they were looking for something else. They were looking for where the Democrats excluded things from the reports or cleaned up the reports. Maybe they edited something, replaced or erased something in the documents. They were looking to see if there were any forgeries. So the well-known lawyer, Harvard professor Alan Dershkovich, I've shown him several times already, talked about him, Professor Emeritus. So Alan Dershkovich was at one time a lawyer for Epstein as well, by the way, and for Trump too. He also handled many other cases, such as defending Trump from impeachment, though he left the Democratic Party long ago. Here is his opinion.
Joining us live is former attorney for Jeffrey Epstein, Alan Dershkovich. Good to see you this morning, Alan. What will we discover when these files are released? Do we already know everything? There are still a few cases that have been sealed by the courts, not by the government, but by the courts. Judges have kept some testimonies secret, but I think we know almost everything there is to know. And the Democrats will blame the Republicans will blame the Democrats, and we all should blame Jeffrey Epstein. He's the guy who did all these terrible things. I wasn't just his lawyer, I was also Donald Trump's lawyer, so I see all sides of this issue. That's what lawyers do. We represent people, whether we agree with them or not. Much has already come to light. I'm glad and want everything to be revealed. From the very first day, I insisted that everything be revealed, absolutely everything. And the victims have every right to this, and those who are accused also have this right. We need to lay it all out. So did you see everything on the list, Alan? I saw everything, but I probably saw more than almost anyone else. Because I saw some of the testimonies and I saw most of the materials that were originally hidden. And, you know, we already know most of it. Yes, yes.
Well, I would think that if the Democrats had something on Trump, they would have already made it public. That would have happened when Joe Biden was president, but here we are. Based on what you know, Donald Trump is clean. Or will there be some explosive compromise?
No, I think he's clean. Look, when I was Jeffrey Epstein's lawyer, I tried to make a deal for him, of course, and so I said to Epstein, is there anything you can give me about other people that I could pass on to the government and maybe get you a better deal? And I went through the list of names, including Donald Trump. It was a long time ago, you know, in the 2000s, I don't remember exactly, but at the very beginning, maybe in 2006, 2007, or 2008. And he said, no, there was absolutely nothing on Donald Trump. He told me the name of one person on whom there was some negative material. But it wasn't Donald Trump, and it wasn't someone from the government today.
Or maybe he's a former politician. Thank you.
No, an entrepreneur, but I can't be more specific. Yes.
That's right. Why such reluctance to just release it? If there's nothing there, then why not release it? I mean, that's the main argument from some people in Congress, including Marjorie Taylor Greene. Yes.
It seems to me they misunderstand the fact that today the media considers you guilty if your name even appears on the list. If you were on the plane or on the island or did something else that could be completely innocent. And that's why I think people are worried that even if they didn't do anything wrong, the media can smear them for any connection with Epstein. And obviously there are people who had connections with Epstein for years who didn't do anything wrong and some who did. And that's why I understand the reluctance. But in the end, you know, we live in a society where eventually everything will come out. Everything will come to light eventually. So it's best to be on the right side. From the start, I've always said, yes, let's put everything out to find the truth. The key is finding the truth.
At one point, Dershkovich asked Epstein if he had any compromising material on Trump. So this was long before Trump went into politics, and Epstein said no. Except for former Treasury Secretary Larry, that is Summers, who said he is deeply ashamed of his connection with Epstein. He didn't write anything about the girls. By the way, did he have any connection to it or not? Well, he just kind of consulted with him. Oh my God, he consulted with him. The scandal affected former White House legal counsel Catherine Ryemiller. I think it's Rumiller, something like that. She's Ryemiller. And the journalist and Trump-hating biographer Michael Wolff. I've talked about him too and shown him. A. Bellaclin. Yes, of course. We know this is Lord Peter Mandelson, the former British ambassador to the United States and the Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Barak. We don't know to what extent or what exactly, but we know that he was connected with our respected pimp, or rather our disrespected pimp. A socialist, but he's also Chomsky. It's interesting, I think he must be about 100 years old by now. I read his stuff when I was very young. It seemed to me that he was already an old man back then. So who else? Are socialists always drawn to rich people in high society circles? So it seems you've also been to Pleasure Island before. George W. Bush's Attorney General Alberto Gonzales, former Senator George Mitchell, and also former United States Ambassador to the United Nations Democrat Bill Richardson. He was a governor, ran for president, dropped out quickly, and, so to speak, gave up rather fast. Hillary Clinton. He was, I think, one of the first well-known people to go to Barack, realizing, so to speak, that the victory was there, the energy was there, and that's it. He was appointed to the United Nations. So whether they are guilty of something or not, we don't know, but their names are threads and something will follow them. There will definitely be an investigation now. Trump right now, so maybe that was his main idea all along. If he had come and started the investigation, everyone would have shouted that he would fake something, that he would insert something there, that these people can't be trusted. But here he made the whole country stand on its head, mostly the Democrats, who thought that since he wasn't releasing those files, it meant there was something in them that he didn't want out. Let's keep pushing so everyone can see. And they pushed so hard that he said, well, guys, there's nothing I can do. If you want it so much, let me just release it all for you. There's a possibility that all of this was, so to speak, a well-thought-out game with Trump, generally speaking, with his ability to create, so to say, chains of actions. Chess, I would say. Yes. Maybe he doesn't actually play chess, but in spirit, so to speak, he's a chess player. I would even say a 10-time world champion. So one thing is clear. He took 26 flights on the Lolita Express. We know this for sure because there are logs, airplanes, logs. These are lists of who flew there, so to speak, from the dispatcher, or, I don't know, there are some procedures where they record everyone who is flying. We don't know how many times he was on the island. Well, not just the island, there were other brothels owned by Epstein. Democrats claim he never went there, or maybe once by mistake, while Trump says it was 28 times. In general, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. The fact that Clinton used underage prostitutes has actually been confirmed by the girls themselves, and not just one, but several of them. They said yes, they said, oh yes, with this, yes, he likes it. In my opinion, the younger the better. Overall, since the Democrats turned out to be much more involved in this whole story than the Republicans, for now it seems that the benefit of publishing the dossier goes specifically to Trump's people. The dossier will be used as a dossier, I mean the entirety of everything related to Epstein. So, of course, the dossier will be used in the election campaign, in rhetoric, and both sides will try to use it. I emphasize the Republicans' desire for transparency, and the Democrats will say that they were the ones striving for transparency. But there is nothing in the files that could serve as a reason Well, let's say for Trump's reluctance to disclose them. It seems that in reality, Trump, as I already said, was waiting for the moment when it would be most politically advantageous to release this information, and also, so to speak, as if the Democrats insisted on it, in which there is more dirt on the Democrats than on the Republicans. Exposing the elites, fighting the deep state, corruption, these are actually Make America Great Again topics. In reality, and the voters' paper should work in favor of the Republicans and against the Democratic Party. Several news organizations, let's put it this way, a few news outlets are hinting that they have materials. Next, for big scandals, it is reported that in a number of companies, media outlets, and political circles, there is a frantic search for countermeasures, including firing those who have not yet come into the public eye. But it is already known that they are mentioned in materials that have not yet been published. Well, there you go. Democrats in Congress released 3 emails, Republicans responded, and there are 100,000 pages of emails. And there's also, so to speak, in Hellsberg. So in the KGB and the FBI and in the Justice Department, there are still plenty of materials. Obviously, someone saw them, someone investigated, and someone paid money. What did you tell them as well? I think the people who watch them and can tell something about them made good money. Now the snowball has started rolling down the hill, and all you can do is lean back in your chair and make a ton of popcorn. For now, hit the bell and let's say goodbye. See ya.